Hello and welcome. This is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Cash Flow Calendar. In this week's training, we're going to be taking you every step of the way creating your very own cash flow calendar. We're going to show you how to take transactions and put them into a cash flow calendar for any type of business, complete with conditional formatting, a single day click, very heavy on power and functionality, very light on VBA code. I can't wait. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I've had a lot of requests for this particular function, so I'm really happy to bring it to you. It's going to be a cash flow calendar so much. We're going to be doing it all from scratch, at least the calendar part of it. I've got some data and a little information already on this template here, but everything else I'm going to show you every single step. This one, extremely light on code. In fact, it's just a few lines of code. So if you're one of those that doesn't have a lot of confidence in VBA code and wants to learn a little bit more, this is a great training for you. We've got formulas, we've got conditional formatting, we've got a little bit of code, but extremely powerful. This is an application that you can use in any type of business for any type of company, and you can take this to your company or create your own applications with this implemented. I can't wait to show it to you. Of course, I'm going to include the download in the description, absolutely free. Whether you're using your email or Facebook Messenger, you can get that for free. And we bring these trainings to you each and every week. So if you like this, make sure you subscribe. Also, click the like and, of course, comment down below. All of that really helps us get these trainings to you and gets the algorithm for YouTube just right so they can alert you when we have new trainings. So I really appreciate that. I always bring these to you every single week for free. And I like to show you how you can take your Excel skills to the next level. And one of the best ways to do that is through my mentorship program. If you're an Excel enthusiast and you've always wanted to take your skills and create a passive income, the Excel for Freelancers mentorship program may be right for you. And that's the program where basically we're creating an entire accounting application. I'm going to show you not only how to create an accounting application, but how to create your own applications regardless of what type of application. We're going to walk you through every single step, all the way from the design phase all the way to the deployment. Basically, it's going to be from concept all the way to cash and everything else. I want you to turn your Excel skills into that passive income you've always wanted to create the lifestyle that you deserve. And the Excel for Freelancers mentorship program is just the way to do that. So I'll include the links down below, myexcelmentor.com. That's myexcelmentor.com. That'll get you all the information. All right, let's get started on the training because I've got so much to cover and we got to get it on right up. We're going to call this the cash flow calendar. And notice I do have some things pre-formatted. That's just going to help us move things forward a little bit quicker as opposed to starting with complete. So I just have a little bit. I'm going to auto color all the lines, let's say all the way, and give it a fade. So we're going to do the format and I'm going to do a fill. Now I do have a different type of theme and I'm going to show you what that is. We're going to go with just this light blue theme, something relatively simple. We can do a fill effects actually on that, and we'll do this blue here. It's kind of a standard blue, something a little bit different. If yours looks different, if you get it and you decide, hey, mine looks a little bit different. Why does mine look different? And that's because of the theme or theme colors. So what theme colors am I using on this? Well, I'll go over that in just a moment so you can see. So that way you can match it or you can change it yourself and come up with your own theme colors. I am using, when you want to know what theme colors you want, you just go into the page layout here and look at colors. Okay, so you scroll down here and I'm using what's called flow. These are flow. Okay, that's the one I'm using. You have many, but if you change it, they'll go accordingly, but that's the one I'm using. So if you wanted to match it, you just have to use that one. Okay, so basically what I want to have is pretty much the same type of theme, and I want to have the user the ability to select the start day, the month, and the year. So again, I want to create a dynamic calendar, just not something for one type of person, but something for everybody. So I want a start day here. Let's put in start day, and let me check my spelling because every time I miss my spelling, you guys have to look for a misspelling. Oh, I already have a data validation here because it's some previous. Let's just take a look at that, what we have so far in this application. I've got a summary here. All this is a named range of days. Pretty simple. So those are the kind of things that we can do previous because you pretty much know. I also have a list of months here, and that's just called months. So I've created a named range called days and months. And then I also want to set some color thresholds. So now if we change these, or if we can set the color, that means anything, the cash flow on a specific day. If it comes below 0, I want it to be red, yellow, or green. And I'm going to show you 2 different methods of how to do conditional formatting, and I'll show you the one we went with and why we went with it. So that's covered on this page. That's pretty much it for the summary page. So it's pretty easy, kind of simple. In the data, we have data. Let me merge and center this. We have basically a transaction database. So that's going to let us know, all the transactions, and I've got some named ranges attached to these. I just wanted to go over them briefly with you. So let's just go into the formulas, name manager, and it's the ones I've just mentioned: days you've seen, months you've seen. Extract gets created with the advanced filter, so not to worry about that. We're gonna have a start date number. I'll show you what that is in a moment. A transaction date. Now these 3, transaction date, transaction deposit, and transaction withdrawal, those 3 are basically tied to this transaction database. And I've used offset. If you haven't, not familiar with this, I've used it a lot, but offset is going to allow us to create a dynamic named range so that as our table grows, so does that name range. So notice we've used offset. And remember, this is really important. When you use offset, let me zoom in here so that you can see that. When you use offset, you want to make sure you start with the header row. Because that way, when there is no data or the data is all deleted or cleared out, it doesn't create a problem or issue. If you delete those rows, it doesn't. But we want to make sure, of course, the header is not really part of our data itself. So we want to start 1 row down. This one right here will start at 1 row down. Columns, we don't need to make any column adjustment. Then what we want to do is determine how many rows. How many rows? Well, we're going to use a count. Now make sure when you count, you're going to count a column that always has data, like a transaction ID or a date. Those types of columns always have data. So you always want to count the one that always have data. We're going to count the header too, because again, for the same reason, if we delete the data, we want to make sure it doesn't create an error. So the best way to do that is count, of course, the header row, but then make sure we subtract 1 from the total count so that we have the right count. And then, of course, I want to start in the 1 column. It's just the 1 column that we're referring to in this case. That's how we do offset. And I've done the same thing, whether it is a transaction deposit, transaction date, or transaction withdrawal. So those 3 are based on these 3 columns: date, deposit, and withdrawal. And we're going to need that for our criteria. We're going to create a criteria here. I'm going to show you what that is in a moment. And we're going to show you what those results are. So I've created that a little bit, and we'll get into that. Let's go ahead and design our calendar. So I have a start date, and I also want a month. We have to know what month it is, and I've created a data validation here already with the months just being the months. Just an easy data validation, and then months. Same thing for days. And then I want one more. I want a year. So let's do a year here. And we'll see again, we already have a data validation. This is just a simple, I've just added a data validation with the 3 options, 2020, 2021, 2022. Relatively simple. Let's go ahead and hold the control and then give those a white background so they can distinguish them. And then I also want to give them a border. So we're going to format the cells. Then I'm going to use this consistent border color here, not the fill color actually. That's going to be white. The border color actually is going to be that same color, this blue here. And then what I want to do is, because these are the fields that we're going to be entering, I'm going to put the solid border on the top right and the bottom, and then on the left side I'm going to put the dotted line. I'm going to do the same thing but opposite here on the start date, holding down the control, right clicking, formatting those cells, again using the same color, but this time it's going to be the left, the top, and the bottom, and the dotted line is going to be right. Okay, so that's pretty much it, our fields. So we want to start date, let's say of Monday, we want to start month of January, and let's just maybe, of course, use the current year 2020. That's going to be it. Let's put in an icon here, as we always want to have a nice icon. I've got one saved to make it easy, called this little icon that I created, and then let's bring it down to a reasonable size here, and we're going to put that up here. That's going to be our cash flow icon here. It's kind of a cash flow in a calendar, and I've got space for it right here. Okay, so the rest is we want to do our calendar. So here I'd like to have the year. I want to have actually the month and the year. So how do we know that? Well, that's going to be relatively simple. All we need to do for that is just have an equals, right? And this equals the date. What is the date? The date of H3, right? That's going to be the year. What is the month? The month is going to be, well, it's going to be January, but we need a month number. So how do we turn January into a month number? We can use match. We're going to match, and we're going to look up January, and we're going to look it up into months. And months is the name range we've created, and we want an exact match, so it's going to be 0. And then what we want to do is we want the day. Well, the day is going to be just the first day of the month, and that's fine. Now I've pre-formatted this. How did I get that? How did I get it January? But there's one thing I want to do. I want to change that. Let's take a look at that. So in the, it's called a custom format here, custom. And then when we go to more number formats, all I have is 4 M's, which is going to get us the month, and then 4 Y's. It's going to get us. So that's it. That's all we need to do to get January 2020. And of course, as we change that, it's going to change automatically. February, June 2020. I like that because I really want a date here. In other words, we can format this to just have a month and a year, but I want this to be an actual date, and that's going to help us. Okay, so in other words, we don't just want to type in November and the year, and like we don't want to combine equals this, and we could concatenate or use and. Right? This is another way to do that, but this November 2020 is not an actual date. It's just to the combined month and year. So I really want a date. So that's another way to do that. Okay, so what else do we want? So let's continue on. Let's just color these accordingly. And now what I want in our calendar is I want the day number, right? I want Monday, Tuesday, or whatever the start date is here. So how do I do that? Well, the first is the weekday formula. We need some kind of weekday formula to show because it's dynamic based on the start day. So I also want to use uppercase. So I'm going to use upper. Let's write it up here. Upper of whatever day they've selected here. That's it. That's all I want to hear. Okay, so let's color that. I actually have it. It's going to be in a white font, but let's give it a dark blue background, something like this. Okay, there you go. That's good. Okay, so now we have it. But now what about the next day? We want to make sure to add one, but if it is the last one, in other words, I want obviously we're going to put Tuesday, but what if it's Sunday? What if their start day is on Sunday? And then I want to put it on Monday. Right? So how do we do that? Well, we can do that with just a simple formula. Equals, and then upper, we're going to use upper. If we're going to match it. What I want to do is I want to know what day that is. If, and I'm going to check here, if match, we're looking at B6, this time B6, let's write it up here, B6 days, and then we want an exact match. So if that equals 7, right, if it's the last day, then we need to do what? Then we need to just basically say, if it equals 7, then what do I want? Then I want Monday. Otherwise, what else do I want? Otherwise, then it's going to be the next one in the row. So how do we get to that? In that case, it's just simply index. We're going to index. This time we're indexing days because I want the days. And we're going to add one. We're going to, again, reuse that match again, right? I want to index all the days. What is the row number? It's matching. We're going to look up again this day. And then we want to, once we found it, we can just use B6. We don't need the date because it's already, we don't need the sheet. It's already on Exert. We're going to match up. We're going to look it up. In this case, days again. Also want an exact match. +1, right? +1, right? It's the next one down because it's not the last one. +1, comma 1, column number. That is it. And then end the parentheses. So that's how we get Tuesday. So now if I change this to, let's say, Sunday, it's going to end up Monday. That's what I want, right? So let's put it back to Monday. Now all I need to do is just bring this formula. What we want to do is make sure that we've made these absolute. B6 not going to be absolute. We want to make sure that D6 is absolute. That's very important. And now we can just simply copy this formula and bring it all, drag it all the way over here. That's going to get it. So now if I change this to Wednesday, everything's going to update automatically. Great. So now we have our first day of the month dynamic based on the user selection. All right, what is next? Let's get our first day of the month. I want the first day of the month to appear right here. So how do we do that? Well, the first day is pretty much simple. Equals if, what I want to do is I want to check if the weekday the same day as this one. So we're going to use weekday. Weekday of what? B5. Remember, this is our date here. B5, the first day of the month, B5. If that's why we wanted to use the date. If it is a weekday 2, we're going to use 2. Why is it 2? Why are we using 2? Because notice that our numbers Monday through Sunday, that's the same order as our day list. So we want to keep it on the same. If that equals a start day number. What is that? Start day number. I'm going to show you that. We just need to add that formula in. I've already added the named range, so I'm going to walk you through that, of course. So equals B5, B5 here. In that case, we're going to make that absolute because that's always going to be the first day of the month here and here as well. absolute. If that's the first day of the month, right? If the same day, then I want to display that first day of the month. Make that absolute. Otherwise, don't show anything. Okay, but what is that start date? Let's focus on that. That start date, I'm going to put somewhere else. I'm going to put that, let's say, right here. Basically, what I want to do is I want to turn the start date into a number. So how do we do that? Well, if we look down here, I've already added a start date number. Basically, I've set it to L3. So I'm just going to put start date. Basically, I want to start day. So I want to know what day on a number. I want a number that's going to do that. So how do we do that? It's simple. All we're going to do is match it. Equals match. What are we matching? We're matching D3. We're matching Monday. That's what user. And we're matching it in our days. That's it is. So it's going to tell us what exactly is the first day of the week. Is it 1 for Monday? Is it 2 for Tuesday? Or so on and so forth. And we want an exact match. So that's all I really want. I just want to turn this into a numerical value. So that's it. That's it. All I want to do. So if they change it to Tuesday, it's going to change to 2. That's it. Simple as pie. Okay. So we have it on Monday. So that's just going to give us our start. And remember, we've added that as a named range. I've already created that named range. And all we need to do is just take this cell and write in start day number. That's it. That's all I need to do. And then that's named range. Okay, so we've got that out. Now, of course, November 2020, let's choose actually January. Put in January as a start date. That's probably easier. Now, I know that January, of course, is going to start on a Wednesday in this year. So, of course, there's going to be nothing there on the 1st. We know that because it starts on January of 2020 starts on a Wednesday. So let's continue on. We know nothing should show up there because the first day is not Monday. The first day is not Tuesday. The first day is not Wednesday. Let's write in the formula for the next day of the week. Let's write in the second day. So now what we want to do is let's write it in up here, equals if B7, in this case B7, does not equal, if it's not empty, then we know it's simple. Then we just need to know it's B7 plus 1. Right? If it's not empty, B7, all we need to do is add 1. But what if it is empty? If it is empty, what I want to do is I want to check, is Tuesday the first day of the month? How do we know that? Well, again, what we can do is just run another weekday. If weekday of what? The weekday, again, B5 absolute, and for B5, comma, weekday, we know it's always going to use 2. Always going to use 2 for the weekday because that's the second option. If the weekday equals, what we're going to do is we're going to check mod, right? What is that? The mod of what? In this case, the mod of the start day number divided by 7. If that is the case, plus 1, if those two are equal, right? If the weekday, then what we need to know, then we know that Tuesday is the first day of the month. So then I can just put in Tuesday. Okay, is B5. Okay, great. Okay, and we make that absolute. Otherwise, right, if it's not, otherwise, then leave it blank. So Tuesday is not the first day of the month. Okay, great. So that's for our second day. Now the remaining days or subsequent days are really easy. All I need to do is just drag this over here. But in this case, Wednesday, we're looking for the start date number plus 1. In this case, it's plus 1. And it actually is. Wednesday is the first day of January. So again, I need to do this. And in this case, we're going to actually add plus 2 because it's the second day. In this case, we're going to just do 3. In this case, plus 3, and then subsequent 4 and 5. And then it gets even easier. So you can add these. So then again, drag it over. This time we're adding 4 in case the first day is a Saturday, and then the last is a Sunday. All we need to do, and then in this case, add 5. That's it. That's it for the first row. So that's going to control this column. This is going to be our date. I want this row here, row 8, to be the same as this. So let me just make this one is the height is 60.75. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. 60.75. I want to make sure they're all the same. Okay. Great, so this is our first row of dates. I want to put our second row of dates here, and I want to put the detail and information here. So what is this? So let's look at this. On the second row of the dates, how do we add that? So the first thing is going to be a little bit different. Here is the second, equals if, now this time we're looking for this, 8-7 equals empty, which it wouldn't in any case, but as we carry down this formula, it's easier to we don't need to update this formula, then make it empty, right? If there's nothing, no previous date, make it empty. Otherwise, I also want to check if it's in the same month. Now this wouldn't be, but as we copy down the formula, if, now what I want to check is month of this date, H7 does not equal the month. In other words, if they're in different months, then we need to show empty month of what? The month of what? This plus 1. That means this plus 1. If those do not equal the same months, then show empty. Otherwise, it's simply this one plus 1. In other words, we want to show the next day, but if it's already in the next month, we don't want to show it. And that's it. Add the double parentheses, and then we're good. Perfect. So now we can just carry that on. So now all we need to do is just copy this formula, update. I want to update this a little bit. In this case, instead of H7, right, we're focused on B9, so we just need to update those. And then we can just drag this formula over here once we get all the updates there. Okay, so now we've got day 2. Now all I need to do is just drag this over here, and we got this. So now I'm done with that. Now all I need to copy this row, paste it down here, paste it down here, and paste it down here. That's it. That's all I need to do. And probably one more here too. We'll just do one more in case there's some months. That covers it just in case we have it. And then we'll do another 60 point. Okay, great. So now we have every possibility covered up. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 just in case. All right, excellent. So that's exactly what we have our calendar, but let's update the colors. So now I'm going to work on the formatting. I'm just going to hold down the control here, and then I'm just going to give it this light blue color all the way around. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see what we're going on, and then everything's going to have this light blue. Okay, great. So I'll give it that light blue. This is a nice theme color. Now our calendar is starting to come together. You can see how it's coming together. It's pretty easy. What's next? Let's do some borders around it, and we'll highlight everything here, and then I'm going to just format the cells, and I'm going to use the same border color that we have, which is this blue here. Use this same blue that we have, and I'm just going to give it a, let's say, all the outline border here, and maybe that's good. I think that looks good. There we go. Now we have our nice calendar. Okay, great, but how do we add information into? What do I want to put here? I want to put in here a daily summary. Daily summary. In fact, let's just drag this over here and get rid of the formula once we do, and then just put in daily summary. So I want the daily summary to go there because I want to know what's going on. And let's add some borders around here so we can separate those. Format those cells. I'm going to use the same color, which is going to be lighter, which is exactly what I want. And then we'll do, let's do it all the way around. Okay, good. That's what I want. It's just a very light border. So I want the daily summary to go here. So when we click on a day, I want that daily summary to go here. How do we get the information? Now what I want is I want to know what is the balance in the account for each day. What is the balance? How do we get that? And I want the colors. I want green, red, or yellow. So how do we get that? Well, basically what I want to do is just add additional days, add additional formulas. So let's add this formula, and I want to use conditional formatting. So basically, I want to put a lot of information here. I want to put in the starting, the funds out, the funds in, the finding, but I also want to add conditional formatting in here. Now, if we add a new rule, and let's say we want to use format cells, I want to use a 2-color scale. The problem with this one is that it colors the problem either with either 2-color, 3-color data bar or icon sets is that they color only the cells where the value is in. But I want to put lots of data in those cells. I don't want to just put one number. So how do we do that? How can we do it? Well, we can do a manual conditional formatting, a little bit manual. We can't use these. Now, if I just want to put one single amount in here or here, sure, I can do that, but I don't want to do that. I want to put a lot more information in here. So how can we do that? Well, what we can do is use conditional formatting based on an adjacent cell. In that case, we can use manual. So why don't we do that? Why don't we create an adjacent cell? So let's say I copy this and I use K instead of K. So let's use K7 and have that, paste those formulas in here, and that's pretty much what I want. So what I want is to have basically an adjacent calendar, a hidden calendar with just the amounts here, just the totals, the balance of the accounts, the balance of your cash flow right in those days, and then base conditional formatting base. So why don't we do that? Let's just copy all of this here, all these formulas here, and that way, and I'm going to copy them, all of them this time. and then we'll just paste them all right in here. Paste special and paste the formulas. Now I have like an adjacent calendar. So now what we need is a formula. So what is that formula? Well, let me show you what that formula is. It's relatively simple. Equals, if K7 equals empty, then of course we just want to put empty, then empty, right? Because if there's no date, there's nothing we can do. Otherwise, well, basically what I want to do is I want to sum all the deposits up until that date minus all of the withdrawals up until that date. It's relatively simple. So sum if transaction date, if the date is less than or equal to, and whatever is in here in K7, whatever the date is. Then what are we going to do? We're going to sum all. What's our sum range? It's going to be our deposits, our transaction deposits. Okay, so that takes care of all the deposits. We want to subtract out all the withdrawals minus, this time, sum if, again, transaction date, but this time also, again, less than or equal to, and also K7 here. And of course our sum range in this case is transaction withdrawals. So that's all we have to do. And that's it. That's all we need to do. Of course it's going to be empty because there's no date here, but all we need to do is now drag that over here, and we see we actually have our numbers here. That's exactly what I want. So now we have our totals. Now all I need to do is just hold down the control and copy that all the way down to our base and paste those in. Now we have balances for everyone. So now what I want to do, now I can create a conditional formatting based on this number. And how do we do that? Well, basically what I want to do is any value that's over 1,000, put it in green. Anything that's between 1,000 and 0, put it in yellow. Anything that is less than 0, put it in red. So we can do that with this. So what first thing we're going to do is highlight all the affected rows, holding down the control, all the affected cells within that row, holding down the control, and then just simply pressing them in. Okay, so now that we have all the headers, now what we want to do is create a new rule. In fact, we're going to go into the manage rules and create a new rule, and we're going to use a formula. Remember, you could use, I'll show you in a second how we could use it, but on affected cells in a second. Use a formula, and what is that formula going to be? It's going to be equals, and we're going to be focused on an absolute starting with K8, but we want to make sure that's relative, so we want to make sure it doesn't include any dollar signs, is going to be greater than or equal to what? That 1,000, but it's dynamic based on whatever the value is in this cell here. So greater than or equal to summary. And what is the color we want to give it? I want to give it a green, that light green. Now I've used a green in the past that I want to use, so I can find it in our fill effects. So anytime you want to use a recent color, you can use it in fill effects, and it's this green right here. Okay, so that's the green that I want to use, and I want to click OK. Okay, and now take a look at it. Now we have our green situated, so that worked really great. So that's what we want. So basically, the other type of conditional formatting was the one I was explaining here using color bar. So if I wanted to place conditional formatting on these, I could use a color bar, right? That's another way of doing it, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to place just the data in here. This is what I was speaking of. We can use a new rule, and we could use based on this, so we could use like a 3-color scale, and then basically low. We could do that, right? So that's definitely a possibility, but we can only do that. I don't want to have a calendar with just these cells. That's a great idea, but it doesn't look good. I want to put more data than just the numbers. So in order to do that, so that's an option. It's a nice option, but I want more information to show in these cells. So that's why we're not using it. I can't use adjacent cells for this type of color barring. I like this one. I like the way it looks, but we can't. Excel limits us on this, so we've got to make another way to do it. So just so you know, that's why we're not using that type of color barring, so we can delete that. Okay, so now all we need to do is continue on with our conditional formatting. So we can go into the manage rules, and now we know the highlighted cells. So in this case, why don't we just copy the base and then add the new rule, and this time we're going to add the yellow. So this is going to be equal to and, because there's two conditions in this case. And what? We're going to use K8, right? Make sure it's not absolute, so press F4. K8 is going to be less than, in this case, whatever is in here. And what else? We also want has to be greater than 0. So so we can do K8 is greater than 0. So in that case, what do we want to do? In that case, I want to color yellow. So again, format it go into the fill effects. I want to find that recent color. This yellow is the one I want to use. So that's what I want. Okay, so now we can click OK and apply, and then we'll scroll over to see which cells are focused on that. And now what we want to do is just update the apply range, right? We want it's going to be the same one as this, so we just apply that to here and then click apply. Okay, but notice that this changed. So notice sometimes this changes, so we got to reset that to make sure that when we reset the apply range, it doesn't change that. So okay, we're good to go. So keep an eye on that. It can happen to you too. Okay, so now we've colored them in yellow. Now all we need to do is add the red. So again, one more new rule. Use a formula, and this one's a little bit easier. In this case, equal K8, we know that, is less than or equal to, in this case 0, but we want to make it dynamic. So equal to whatever the user puts inside right here, less than or equal to this. All right, and we want to format that. Again, fill effects, give it that red color. Okay, very good. So now we got the red color. And click OK, and we also have to add the cells that it's going to apply to. We could of course selected them. Then of course click apply, and we need to again update that to K8, otherwise it's going to not be accurate. Click OK and click apply. Perfect. Let's take a look at that's what I want. Now we can see a nice days, but see now we have the cell. We've added conditional formatting. Now it's not as nice as the 3 color, but this is so much more usable because we can now add information in here. Things like what's the starting, what's the ending. So let's add that. I want to know what the starting is and what the ending is. Let's start it off on this day, and then I'll just copy it over because this day we have data in here. So let's add in that formula. What is it going to be? First of all, what I want to do is I want to check to make sure it's date. So I want to add in information in here. What do I want to put? I want to know the starting balance. I want to know how many deposits. I want to know how many funds are out. We could use funds out, funds in, and the ending balance. So let's take a look at, let's put in a formula that we can do that's going to help us with that. So we'll drop this down here. Equals, if, first thing I want to do is I want to check to see if we got a date. If this D7 equals empty, then of course empty, right? Nothing we can do without a date. Otherwise, let's add in some information. I want to know the starting. Oh, it's going to put something short, right? Kind of abbreviate. Starting is, what's the starting going to be equal to? Starting is going to be, and then I'll put a space and then a $sign just because I'll put it, but you can change this. You can also format that, but that would be a long, you can format it in here too. And what's the starting? What is the starting amount? The starting amount in this case is going to be, again, sum if transaction date. Again, the transaction date is going to be, in this case, all the way up to, but not including that date because it's a starting balance. Transaction date, in this case, the criteria is going to be less than, not less than or equals, less than this date. So I want to know less than. Transaction deposits. So what is a transaction? So that's going to get us all our deposits minus, again, we can just copy the same formula. It's going to be the same, except we're just going to add in, instead of deposits, it's going to be withdrawals. So withdrawals. That's it. Okay, that's all we need to do for the starting, but I don't want to put more than that. I want to put something in the next line below, but how do we automate that next line below? Well, we can add in a character. Character 10 is going to do that for it. Character 10 will get us to the next row below because I want to automate. And after that, what do I want to do? I want to put in this case, I want to know funds out. How many funds were out and how many funds were in? So let's put in funds out, then a space, then a $sign, then the end. Okay, so how many funds went out? In fact, let's put in out colon and then space and then a $sign. And then what do we want to do? And then I want to add in, again, in this case, how many went out? Just on that day, it's very, very simple. What are all the funds out? So it's going to be and sum if the transaction date, again, we're going to focus, but in this case, the transaction date is just going to be equals on that day. Transaction date is equals and what? And D7, that's the day we're focused. So we only want to know what are we summing? This is going to only be that how many out transaction withdrawals. I want to know all the withdrawals on that specific day. And then the next line, and again, character 10, that's going to get us to the next line and something else. Now I want to know, now that we have all the funds out, what about the funds in? And funds in colon space dollar sign, and then end colon. And okay, now we want to know all the funds in. So that's pretty much simple. All we need to do is just pretty much copy this here, because we've already written it at the sum if, and just change it to, instead of transaction withdrawals, but to transaction deposit. Okay, great. So now we know all of the funds that were deposited on that day. Again, now I want to know, of course, the ending balance. So, and again, character 10, next line down, and quotation ending. Let's just call it ending. I'm keeping these really short because we don't have a lot of space. Space and dollar sign, and then, and what is the ending balance? We've already calculated it, right? We already know the end balance because we have it over here. So in this case, it's going to be this one right here. We have it right here. In this case, M8. So we know. Very, very simple. Okay, so let's take a look at that, see if there's any issues with our formula. All right, close parentheses. We do need to update, and I need to update this. It's got to be and, of course, the date, right? Not just less than or the date, and then the same thing here, of course, less than the date and the date here, which is in this D7. Okay, so let's take a look at that. All right, I think that's going to be good. Let's copy and paste this over to the next cell. That's a good ending balance. The starting balance is exactly the way I want it. 140 funds in, funds out. Okay, good. So now we're ready to copy this. Again, we can copy this all the way over here, just holding down the control. And now, again, keeping that control down and just highlight all of the cells, all of the days in the calendar that you want here. And then we're going to paste those formulas in. All right, great. That's good. So the negative ones are in red, right? The ones that are less than 1,000 are in yellow. That's just what I want. And the ones that are in green are above 1,000. That's exactly what I want. Excellent. So now we have it. Let's save our work. Forgot to do that. Okay, good. So we got one more thing to do, and that is very, very simple. When I select the day, I want a daily summary to appear here. When I select any day, that's where VBA is going to come in, and that's the only place where VBA is going to come in, and it's just a simple little code. So let's write that macro right now. Okay, so what do I really want to do? So here's what I want to do. When I select a day, I want to filter all of these transactions. I only want to show certain days transactions, and I want to put a criteria in there, right? I want to create an advanced filter based on the selected day. So I want to put that date right here, that selected day. So I'm just going to copy and paste this format. I like the format, and I'm going to paste special and then paste the formats. But I want the day here. In fact, I want a specific date. So let's just say we selected January 1st, 1/1. But I want the full day. I don't want it formatted like that. So I want a long day. In other words, the long date here. And then I'm going to center that. So that's what I want. But here's the challenge. If I put in a transaction here, it's just not going to look very professional because it's only going to see. And look, we only have one column and our rows are kind of not the same widths, not the same heights. How do we handle that? There's a great way to handle that. Again, we're going to use, if you watched last week's, we're going to use my favorite picture tool. That's going to help us out. How do we do that? Well, here's what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to filter all the data based on the date, and we have it based on a criteria here. Equals, this will equal whatever date they've selected here, this date right here. That's what I want. And in fact, I want an unformatted date right here in our criteria. So I want to take all this data, I want to filter only whatever date is here, and then I want the results to appear here. Then what I want to do is I want to take these results here and I want to bring them over here inside our flow. But how do we do that? Because if you take a look, there's only one column, and then there's only, the rows are all messed up. So how do we get it in a nice look? We can use our picture tool. Well, let's do that right now. So here's what I want to do. I want to take a picture of this data. Notice in my test I have results here, but we're going to walk you through that. So let's do that right now. I'm going to use this picture tool. If you don't have this camera tool available to you, how do you get that? You can get it in the More commands, and all you need to do is go into the Quick Access toolbar, select All commands, scroll all the way down until you find the camera tool here, and then just move it over and click Add it. That's how you get it. When we use our camera tool here, in fact, I'll just use it here. We just click anything. It doesn't matter what we're clicking. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the formula that was created, and I'm going to, in fact, I want to include the header rows, and I'm going to go down about, I don't know, 25 or 26 rows. That's going to be fine. Okay, so now I've got a picture. I like that. Now I got a picture of it, and that's perfect. So as my data change here, right, as things change here, it's going to change inside our picture. If you watched last week, you saw it, but it's such a great tool, I'm going to use it again. So, okay, so I've got a picture, but it's on the wrong sheet. So let's copy this, and I'm going to paste it right in here. Now that's great, but it doesn't look right. Why not? Well, first of all, when we copied it, the range copied, but the sheet didn't copy. So let's add in that sheet data, and then we'll just put that in here. Now it looks good. Okay, great. That's what I want. I want to place that picture right in here. But notice that's a little bit blurry. If you see that, my friend Mark Walker on YouTube made a comment, really helped me out. When we go into the size and properties and we take a look, we see that often the height is at 99%. So if we change this to 100%, it's going to automatically be much more clear. That's going to help us. You can do that through VBA or manually. Now we can expand this column. I want this column perfect. That's what I want. Excellent. So here's what I want to do. Here's where VBA is going to help us out. When I click on it, I want this date changed. Automatically, that date is going to change the criteria here. We don't need this anymore. So, and then once we do, we just run an advanced filter, a few tiny little lines of code. Let's get into the VBA and show you just how we did that. First thing I want to do is create a module. So we're going to insert a module, and we'll just give this module name. Always a good idea to call your module's name. And then we'll just call this cash flow summary, okay? Whatever. And then let's create a macro on this, and we'll just call this one sub day summary, because that's what it is, day summary. And it's a very easy macro. We're going to dimension the last row as long. Why is that? Because I need to know the last row of our data. So what is our last row? Our last row is going to be equal to, I'm going to use sheet 3. I used AutoHotkey for that to get that automated. So you say equals sheet 3 range, we're going to use last. So that's going to get us our last row. Once we have our last row, I just want to check if the last row is less than 3, then exit sub, okay? Because there's nothing to do if there's no data. Okay, next up, we're ready to run our advanced filter. So how do we do that? Sheet 3 dot range A, and let's take a look at that. What is the range that we're going to be running our advanced filter on? It's going to start over in A2. We want to include the headers all the way through G in the last row. So that's all we do. Let's write those filters right now. A2 through G and the last row. And that dot advanced filter, running an advanced filter. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy that. Let's bring this down so we can see both. And then we're going to copy that. And then what is the criteria? Criteria range, we can see it's J2 through J3. Criteria range colon equals sheet 3 again. We can close this out. We don't need this anymore. Sheet 3 dot range J2 through J3. That is our criteria range. We're going to copy that. Where are we going to copy? To range equal to, again, sheet 3 dot range. Where are we going to copy? We're going to copy it over to right here. Just the header rows is all we need. Only 3 of them. P2 through R2. That's all we're going to need. Range P2 through R2. That is our range. And then unique equals, I guess false in this case, it's fine. That way every transaction, even if it's a duplicate, equals false, okay? All right, that's it. Let's take a look at that. Sheet 3, range A2 through G in the last row, advanced filter, copy. Criteria range is equal to sheet 3, J2 through J3. We're going to copy it to sheet 3, P2 through R2. And that's all we need to do. We don't even need to bring the data in because it's already in a picture tool. Super, super simple. And often we do want to clear the contents before, but when we run an advanced filter, it does usually clear the contents automatically. Just the advanced filter takes care of that for us. It's pretty smart in that way. All right, great. That's it. That's all we need to do for this macro. But how do we get the date? Now all we need to do is run this macro when a user selects a date. So let's write in that cash flow. This is the cash flow of the sheet. We're going to use selection change when the user actually makes a selection. So it's worksheet selection change, and it's when they make a selection change to what? What is the? Then they make a selection change anywhere from, let's say here, B8 all the way over to, in this case, H18, B8 through H18. So let's write that up. If not, range is nothing. B8, again using AutoHotkey to automate that. B8 through H18. If the user makes a selection, but not only if they make any selection, I need to make sure that they've made the right selection because there's other rows in that. So how do we know that? Well, the first thing we want to do is I want to make sure there's nothing blank. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the row above is not blank. So and target dot offset. What is the row offset? -1. The row above, same column, dot value does not equal empty. I want to make sure it's not empty, right? We need a date. The one above has to be a date. And I also want to run another check. I want to make sure that the one above is a date. It's not empty and actually is a date, right? Because we want to make sure. So how do we check for a date? Well, we can do that with the following lines of code. And is date, again, same thing, target dot offset -1, the one above, comma 0, dot value, so equals true. We want to make sure the one above is a date, right? That way we can ensure that we're selecting on the right cell. Then what do we want to do? Then I'm just going to run the macro. Before we run the macro, what we want to do is make sure that this I7 contains the date of the cell above, right? When they select on this, I want to make sure. So how do we do that? Range I7 dot value equals target dot offset -1 0 dot value. So that's going to take care of it. And then we're ready to run our macro. Then all we need to do is run the macro, day summary. Okay, so let's check that out. What we're going to do is we're going to save our work and take a look at that. Now when they select on a cell, it updates automatically. Very cool. So now you see we have all the transactions here are now updating in every cell we select. And that's how you do it. That's how you create an amazing cash flow calendar with a daily summary automatically. I hope you have enjoyed this training. If you have, I've got a 150 workbook zip file package of my best workbooks. It's just 37 cents per workbook for a total of $56. I'm going to include the links down below. That would really help us out. I really appreciate you sticking with us on these trainings. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.